this. The date for this oral history is October 29th, 2008. We're at the home of Eddie Palmer. It's 6105 Burgess Road, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And this is Terry Stoka speaking. I'm here with Lee Orcutt, and we are looking forward to finding out about your life and things that you've experienced when you were out here in the forest. So let me just start out and ask, what date were you born and where were you born?
I was born on October the 10th, 1927, near a little town called Bristol that is east of Lamar, about 17 miles north of Grenada. Born on a farm. My parents rented 80 acres, sharecroppers, half and half.
Oh, wow.
And we stayed there until I was 14. Then we moved to Colorado Springs, and have left here a couple of times to go to other places like Wichita, Kansas, and Lamar to live, but always came back to Colorado Springs. And I was married and had, I believe, 3 children. We were living in the north end of Colorado Springs, and my sister and her family rented a place over here on Arrowhead Drive, and we came out to visit them, and we thought Black Forest was wonderful. So we started saying, if we could find a place that had an inside bath, we'd move to Black Forest. Well, one day my brother-in-law told me, I'm going to give that house up. It costs too much for gas. And without saying one word to our respective landlords, we traded houses. You wouldn't do that today, would you?
Boy, no, you
But
wouldn't.
we traded houses, and we lived there for a couple of years, had some hogs and a cow.
That was in 1954 then?
That was in 54, yes.
Well, where is this place you said?
It's off of Arrowhead Drive. You know, if you go to Milam and south,
Yeah.
forgotten the name of the first road. It was the name of a builder.
Forest Edge?
Maybe.
Uh-huh, because that's where I live.
Oh, then the next one is Arrowhead, no?
No, Arrowhead goes off Milam.
Milam to the
It goes
west.
between Milam and Howell.
House, yes. And this house was on Arrowhead.
On Arrowhead.
Uh-huh. Back up the hill, more than 100 yards from the road. And some people by the name of Asher owned it, and they lived on the east side of Milam.
Mhm.
Just barely north of where Milam dead ends into Old Ranch Road. And we lived there a couple of years. I had a brother that also wanted to live out here,
Mhm.
and so we looked around quite a little bit, and we found 2 places. The first one was 40 acres over on the southwest corner of Milam and Shoup. It's still that nice 40 acres that has a little meadow going to the west. Somebody lives there that cuts a lot of firewood.
Yes.
Yes, I know where you're talking about. Yes.
Clint Finney.
Nice meadow.
Fanny.
Yeah.
But they wanted $11,000 for it. Well, we felt like they were trying to rip us off. And then we found this place, and it was a 20-acre tract, and had this shack on it, and had an 80-foot well with a hand pump on it. And so we bought it for $5,000.
Really?
It's hard to believe now that
Yes, yes.
it seemed like at that time, if you could find 5-acre tracts, you could buy any of them for $3,000.
Really?
And
Let me back up a little bit here. So what type of farming were you doing when you were growing up out by Lamar?
well, it was called truck farming. We had some corn and alfalfa, but about half of the 80 acres we did in such as sweet corn and watermelons and cantaloupes and tomatoes and peanuts sometimes. And it wasn't a very good way to make a living.
A lot of hand labor, obviously.
Yes.
You couldn't use machinery for much of that.
We did it mostly with a team of horses. The last couple of years that I was there, my dad had a little tractor made. We called them whoopie tractors. Have you been around them? Took an old Model A and turned the differential around, and so you were driving in a low gear all the time, and driving backwards. Well, you're driving in reverse, and we put a well, I've forgotten what it's called. It's not a buck rake. It's the front end rake to buck up alfalfa,
Okay.
and it would lift and put it up on the stack too.
Kind of what became a farmhand.
Yes.
Called when I was growing up.
Sure.
Farm.
Sure.
Okay. Did you then take vegetables and things into Lamar, or?
We didn't get far away as Lamar. That was a long ways.
Oh, really?
Into Bristol and Grenada.
Okay.
There was more traffic. They were just building Highway 50.
Okay.
And so there was more traffic there, and we'd sell our cantaloupes and watermelons and sweet corn.
You'd sell them in a stand of your own?
Yes. And later then, a grocery store in Bristol made a deal to buy most of the things that we had, but it was certainly not a way to live comfortably.
Well, but you know, the years you're remembering was during the Depression.
Yes.
And it was tough for everybody. You were
Yes.
lucky you had any food at all, period.
What we're seeing today brings back memories, doesn't it?
Yes, doesn't it?
Sure
For a
does.
lot of people, yeah, it does.
Did you go into the military at any point?
No. I never was called up. I started working when I was young. When I was 16, I started working my hours when I wasn't going to school at a Town Talk Bakery in Colorado Springs.
Oh my goodness, I haven't heard of that for years.
And
I mean,
worked there for a couple of years, and we bought a new oven, and one day they gave a tour of owners of other bakeries, and I was running the oven, and at the end of the tour, one of those men come back and he said, I own a bakery in Lamar. I'd like to have you down there. Here's my card. And of course, to a 16-year-old kid, my head got about this big. And I went down and did work for him for a couple of years. Then met my wife there. She was working as a waitress. We got married, moved to Wichita, and stayed there for a couple of years, and then came back to Colorado Springs.
Were you a baker in Wichita?
I started working in a restaurant as a fry cook.
Okay. What was the date you were married?
February 22nd of 1948, and then unfortunately she got cancer in '88 and died in September of '89.
Sorry.
And a couple of years later, I met this lady from Argentina that was here on vacation. I was studying Spanish at the Foreign Language Center down here, and she volunteered as a moderator. And so we had contact for a couple of years. Got married in La Forêt, and been
What date?
happily married
What date?
on the 29th of June
Oh,
of 91.
91. Okay.
92. It's been 16 years. Yeah.
Okay. So when you moved back from Wichita, you said you were a fry cook, mainly in
Mhm.
Wichita, and you moved back then to Colorado Springs, and what type of work did you do then?
I had a brother that was in the building business, and I went to work for him as a carpenter, learning to be a carpenter.
And that was 54 then when you were moved back from Wichita, is that right?
Um,
that was, you lived downtown for a while and then you came out to the
Yeah,
forest.
it would have been in 51 or 52 when we moved back.
So tell me about the building business that you were doing there.
Well, building was much different than it is now. Not nearly as much of it. We were building over in Pleasant Valley. Do you know where that is? Near the Garden of the Gods, south of the Garden of the Gods.
Okay.
And we were building those houses there. Pretty nice houses. Maybe about 1,100 square feet for somewhere around $17,000. And
This was kind of the building boom after the Second World War, I suppose, wasn't it?
yes,
And Fort
Sure
Carson
was.
was expanding.
And I won't be able to think of the name of a fella that became a big builder here and in Pueblo, and he built big tracts of houses. But then, how did it come about? Well, I guess I worked for him for several years, and he was killed in a car accident. And my older brother and I decided we would finish out the work that we had going, and during that time decided to go ahead and go into business.
What was the name of the building company that he had?
Palmer Construction Company.
That was the name of the man you worked for? Or that?
Yes,
Okay.
is my brother. And so we went into business, and I had moved out here, and I started doing some work for people out here. My brother was working in town, and one day we said, why don't we just divide things, and it'll be a little easier for both of us. And I did, and that was just before I met Ed Morrist. Ed and Peggy Morrist. They were very influential in the neighborhood, really, in Black Forest. I believe I could say that Ed Morrist was maybe top dog around here for several years. He ran a printing company downtown, and he told me they were going to build a building at the community church, and introduced me to Nick Natelli. You know him?
Yes.
And And so we built that building and then built the parsonage for that same group.
Now, was that the Catholic church?
That was the community church
That's
Oh,
the,
on Shoup. And
community church.
the new addition onto it? Or not the original church?
no,
Okay,
the
the new church.
yes.
Okay.
And I enjoyed every bit of it. I remember somebody told me, how many parishioners do they have? And I said, I think about 100. He said, that's just how many bosses you'll have.
I bet.
But there was no problem with that at all.
That was a significant construction project, wasn't it?
At that time, yeah.
It really was. What is it, brick, block, or how? What is the type of construction?
It was the lower level was block, and the upper level was beams and posts. And what took place during that construction? Nothing remarkable. They found somebody that did those windows. I don't know if you've seen them,
I have seen
but they're
them, yes.
very nice windows. Somebody that I think did them for free. And they wanted to do the painting. So the congregation did the painting. And didn't have any problems with them. It wasn't long then until I think the architect that did the plans for the Catholic Church called me and gave me a set of plans, and I bid it against a couple of other bidders, and we built that kind of under the same conditions. The parishioners painted the church. They were all good to work with.
So you built a parsonage at the Catholic Church as well?
No.
Okay. The sanctuary.
And the new addition was put on by somebody else too.
Okay.
I had retired before they put that on.
Okay.
And they invited us to come to a 25th anniversary of their original building. And that's when Evelyn French asked me to give her some memories, and I just couldn't do it.
Well, that's significant. When you first moved out to the forest out here, you said 1954. How was it different? I'm sure the roads weren't paved, and what was it like out here?
No, Black Forest was paved most of the way. There were parts of it that weren't. And I believe they paved Burgess in '61. We had a family reunion here, and we had a couple of huge tents set up out there. We had about 120 people. One of the fellows that I worked with used to make a racial remark about that. He'd say, "Boy, there are more of you Palmers than there are white people." But we had a huge reunion, and Gilbert Harris, that had Black Forest Lumber, loaned us a refrigerator to put out there. We went up to get it, and that's why I remember they were paving the road at that time. They had it in a little trailer, and one of my cousins was standing in the trailer holding it, and the road department had thrown up a ridge of gravel right in the middle of the road, and they hit that gravel and dumped him, hurt him pretty bad. We didn't take him to the hospital. Those things have changed too.
dumped him and the refrigerator?
Mm-hmm. And the refrigerator right on top of it.
Oh my goodness.
But he got over it.
Oh. Wow.
Skinned up and bruised up pretty badly, but he got over it.
Now, who was that?
It was a cousin from Oklahoma.
One of your cousins?
Yeah,
And he was just out there?
Jack Barker, for that family reunion.
Oh, he came for the reunion?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness. Oh.
So there obviously were not nearly as many homes out here. How far were you from neighbors,
No.
like over in Arrowhead and here?
This house just to the left of us was there. And that was the only one in this area for quite a while. Later I built this little house with a two-colored roof down front and sold off 2 acres there. But I've been saying here lately, I don't think during the day there would have been more than 10 or 12 cars pass by on Burgess all day long. Now sometimes when I go down the road, I have to wait while that many cars go by.
Yes.
It has really changed. And I think, I'm not sure about this date, but I think we got natural gas in 61 or 62. That was a big help.
Did you heat with wood a lot in the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
And oil maybe?
And propane.
Propane, okay.
Uh-huh.
But did you use firewood quite a bit or not very much?
Yes, used a lot of firewood. And fortunately, I've always enjoyed cutting firewood. And during that really dry spell that we had in 2002, I cut 105 pines off a year in 1 year. And last 3 years I haven't had one dead pine.
Really? Boy. Yeah, that was a bad year.
Oof.
That was a bad year.
Yes, if that would have continued, I don't know.
Did your kids attend the school here?
Sure did. All
What
of them.
grades? Do you remember roughly?
All of them went all the way through Edith Wolford School now, and then the rest of the way through Air Academy High
Your
School.
academy.
Uh-huh.
They had quite a bus ride in the morning, didn't they?
Uh-huh. But we were always happy with the school system.
Okay.
I don't know if you had the privilege of getting acquainted with Mrs. Wolford.
No.
Wonderful woman.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. You couldn't have asked for anyone better. And you know, it was a shame. She never had any children of her own.
Really?
But she just loved every child
Mm-hmm.
in her midst.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Well, how many children did you have?
6.
6.
5 boys and 1 girl.
and so you said 2 of the boys are living over here,
Mm-hmm.
and where is the
Just
rest
a
of the family?
quarter of a mile up the road here. And my daughter lives in town, and 1 son in town. Two sons in town. Scattered out in town.
Okay.
Oh, and 1 son in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
All right. Okay. What? So your main building business out here was homes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you concentrated on.
Sure was.
Did you do tract homes, spec homes, and then sold them, or did you mainly build homes for people who, arranged with you to build?
I only did 2 spec homes, and I wasn't good at it. If it wasn't sold by the time I swept the floors, I put a price on it that would make it sell. And mostly I just did custom homes for people that came to me, and sometimes we'd do the plans, sometimes we'd get an architect. Later I was fortunate enough to get into large luxury homes, and they all had architects.
Okay. All right.
Where are some of these homes at?
I did several over in Broadmoor, some in Kissing Camels Estates, and a couple of the larger ones were for two young brothers that had just each inherited $16 million, and we built houses for them out by Elbert.
Okay.
One of them had 13,000 square feet in it for a young couple that had just graduated from college.
Not many people start out in life that way, do they?
No. They sure don't.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
But most of these homes, they're still in existence and so forth, and
Yes. Let's see, you probably know Jane Lucia, Norman and Jane Lucia. He just died a couple of months ago.
oh really?
My wife laughed at me when we made a list of people that we were going to invite to our wedding. We got married over in La Forêt, and
did you?
and she made fun of me because almost the whole list that I made were my old customers.
Yeah, good.
But I always felt like by the time you spend that much of somebody's money, you get pretty well acquainted with them. You can
Yeah.
get pretty close.
Yes.
That's great, though. So you were married in La Forêt in the chapel?
Hmm.
Oh, how wonderful. Did it have windows at that time?
Yes,
It did?
yes.
Okay. And, well, you said you were married in 92.
Have they lost the windows out of
No, no. We were, at one of my cousin's son's wedding over there in January. And there were no windows.
it? Well,
And we nearly
in
froze.
January. Woof.
It was very, very cold. And so when we got the ceremony over and went to the Ponderosa Lodge for the reception, it was welcomed with that big fireplace and everything. It was so cold, but there were no windows there. And now there is, so I was curious. I don't know when they put those windows in. I'm going to have
Well.
to search that one down.
Huh. That's an interesting building. Well,
Oh, isn't it though?
the big one is, the big building is,
Yes, yes. And I can't
treasure.
remember who did all those buildings. Do you?
Oh, I don't remember now.
Alice Bemis had them
Well,
built.
I know she had them built, and all of the logs, that's what surprised me. The logs came from up around Victor.
Uh-huh.
They hauled them down, to build all of that. But, yeah, that's a whole nother history over
Uh-huh.
there.
Sure is.
As a builder, I'm sure you looked at Ponderosa Lodge with interest as
Yes.
how that thing was built.
Well done.
They
Really.
didn't make any shortcuts there, did they?
No. I never did do any log buildings, and I admire people that can do that
Yeah.
that well.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Did you have a church home here or in town?
At the Black Forest Chapel.
Black Forest Chapel, okay. Now, it
I
was...
worked a lot on it, but I can't say that I built it. 'Cause
Really?
it was just a community
So were
project.
you were involved with that when it first was starting up then?
Yes.
Okay, from the very beginning. When about was that?
50 years ago,
50 years
because
ago.
it just had a 50th
About 58,
anniversary.
roughly. It is 57, something like that.
A fellow by the name of Frankie McGee had a Bible study. And actually we met in the basement of the old part of the community church for a while. And then they said they needed that room. So we went over to an old log cabin on Frank McGee's place. And we're there about a year, and finally Glenn Vesey gave us
Oh,
the land
no. Okay.
to
So that's
build
the
on there.
church on the corner of Vesey and Black
Hmm.
Forest.
Yeah.
And now you have this huge chapel there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Radical change from the old building.
Yes.
So there was a
That's
smaller
right.
church building in the beginning, and
Mhm.
now
Yes.
it's larger chapel.
Uh-huh.
Sanctuary's been built.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Were your children married in that church or other places?
Two of them were.
Two of them were?
Really?
Uh-huh. You mentioned a while ago snows.
Yeah.
I don't have really any stories to tell about snows. I remember in 1957, I believe it was, we had a huge snow. And at that time, I was the only one along here that had a four-wheel drive. And after it stopped snowing, I put chains on all fours and started up the road. Hadn't been a snowplow through yet, and I got up here about a quarter of a mile, and a fellow named Chick Young lived there. He was a salesman, and I stopped and said, "Chick, do you want me to drive in and around so you can get out?" And he said, "Nope, I'm going to let he who put it there take it away." And I'll never forgot that.
He obviously had enough flexibility. He didn't have to go
Didn't
somewhere.
have to go to work.
Yeah. It's nice living in the forest when you don't have to go somewhere. You can
You're
really
sure right.
enjoy a good snowstorm.
You're sure right.
But I do feel for the people sometimes who have a schedule to keep and a job to get to.
Yeah.
So-
Many times they don't keep them either.
Yes, many times they don't keep them.
Yeah.
We have been snowed out
Out,
for
oh,
3 days. That's not
Couldn't get
fun.
home.
Couldn't get home.
About how many years ago? A few years ago, we had a huge snow in late October.
mhm.
I remember standing here and teasing my wife because she comes from an area where it never snows.
Yeah.
And I was telling more, more, more. Well, we went to bed that night, and about 1 o'clock in the morning, there was the loudest noise I'd ever heard. And a big pine tree north of the house had broken off about halfway up, turned over and came down just like an arrow through the roof, through the ceiling, and I had about that much blown insulation up there. Just missed her legs. It broke the top off the tree until it was about 4 inches in diameter. Come right down to the bed. Made a terrible mess. There was nothing to do but get up and go to
I bet
another
you
bedroom.
Quit asking for more snow.
So you said it was about a
Oh,
4-inch
goodness.
piece that came through?
Yeah. It really tore things up, and we were leaving 2 days from then to go to Argentina. And so I just got up there and nailed some plywood over, cut the tree up with the chainsaw and threw it off, left it for my sons, and they patched it all up before I got back.
Wow. Now, at what point did your sons move out here and the rest of your family, since you have others here? You were here by yourself as far as Palmer's for a while?
We were the only Palmers for a while.
Okay.
Uh-huh. And my oldest son, Larry, changed the name of the company. He has Blue Sky Construction, and fortunately has been able to continue building luxury homes. And my other son, Shannon, and my grandson both work for him.
Okay.
So they're keeping up the trade.
So you have lots of family get-togethers,
Quite a few,
except for 6 months when you're in Argentina?
yes. And I really miss, I don't know why it is, but I think I miss Thanksgiving more than I even do Christmas. Because I think at Christmas we had gotten old enough that everybody had their own celebration in their own home. But we'd always get together for Thanksgiving. So each year before we go back, we did this last Sunday, we'll have somewhere between 30 and 45 people here, just family, and have a Thanksgiving dinner. This time we just had desserts. I guess we're getting old. Huh?
No.
Yeah.
But we really enjoy having a Thanksgiving celebration.
So you have 6 children. How many grandchildren?
Between us, 20.
20.
And 6 great-grandchildren.
6 great-grandchildren. How fun. So how many years have you been going down to Argentina?
17.
17. Like about a 6-month period each time?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when you're down there?
Well,
And where is it that you go down
to Buenos Aires.
Okay.
And my wife has a school there. She started out with 19 preschoolers almost 60 years ago, and now has kindergarten through high school with about 770
Really?
alumnos. And so when I first went down there, I tried to oversee the maintenance in the buildings. But I finally got too old. And now I spend my time by going for a good walk in the morning and get the correspondence off of the email. And then I'll go over to school and take up some of their time, visit with a few of them till lunchtime, and afternoon, time for a siesta. If you live in Argentina, you take a siesta.
So for the first number of years you were going down there, your wife was actively involved with the school?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
As a teacher, administrator, or?
As an administrator.
Okay.
She taught in it until it got too big and she had to spend her time at other things. But now she only spends maybe an hour a day.
She still is there every day almost.
They like for her to have the last word.
I forgot to ask your wife's name.
Her name
Yes,
is Mercedes.
Mercedes.
Mercedes, uh-huh.
I forgot to ask that way back.
Uh-huh.
So this, where you go down then to Buenos Aires is warm and balmy and seaside, oceanside temperatures.
We're about 150 miles from the ocean,
100.
but we're right alongside of the, when we studied about this river, we called it the River Plate. They call it Rio de la Plata. And we're 150 miles inland, but just to go straight across the river to Uruguay, it's 35 miles across. It's a huge river.
Yeah, that's more like an ocean itself.
It's muddy, erosion, and is moving so slow that when you get out in the middle of it on a boat, you just feel like you're on a muddy ocean.
Oh, my. 'Cause obviously it's summer when you're down there.
We get there just in time for the trees and bushes. They have lots of flowering trees and bushes. I don't know if you're acquainted with the jacaranda. I think in California they call it a jacaranda, but it looks like a 40-foot tall lilac tree. Beautiful. And some of their streets are lined with them. They call it the city of trees, and it does have lots of trees. So we get there just as spring comes and come back here just as the lilacs are blooming.
That's great.
We're fortunate.
Wow.
You got the best of both worlds.
Yes, they're just the opposite.
Yeah.
A few things still catch my attention, that in the winter, the sun lays way over in the north instead of the south like it's doing here now. And the moss is on the south side of the tree. All of the high mountains have the dangerous side on the south. But it's a beautiful country.
And the water goes the other way down the drain.
It sure does.
Did you know that?
No.
In the southern hemisphere, the water going down the drain goes counterclockwise. Here it goes clockwise up in the northern hemisphere. Gravity does that.
We went to Kenya a few years ago, and a fellow had a sign up equator, just on a path that people walked on, and he gave us a demonstration, and he would he had a barrel or a tub here and a tub about 10 feet over there, and he'd pour water down through a funnel here. He'd walk over there, turn the other way, just 10 feet apart.
That's amazing. I
Uh-huh.
didn't know that. Gee.
Interesting. What brought you to Kenya?
I'd always wanted to see those animals, and I used to be a serious hunter, and we got a chance to go to Kenya on a good trip, and so we spent 29 days over there. It's a different world. You need to go.
Where is that?
Kenya, it's in Eastern Africa, and we spent time out with those Maasai. They live just like the animals do, and eat only meat and blood and bread, nothing more. Yet they seem to be healthy, tall, slim people.
Amazing.
They bleed those cows with a little arrow. They'll punch a hole in the cow's jugular vein, and so that they can take 2 liters out of a growing cow about every 3 weeks.
Cow stays alive.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Oh my.
Just
Yeah,
to drink?
different life. We were in one place where we were 60 miles from any kind of a little shack store that would sell anything, and I asked our driver, what do those people do when they need something essential? He said, for example, I said, well, salt and sugar. It's not essential, he said. Yeah, they live just like the animals.
Oh wow. My goodness.
Yeah. I can imagine that.
At what point did you retire from the construction business?
When my first wife got cancer, within a few months, I needed to be here with her, and so I retired at the end of '88.
Okay. Okay. And what types of things in your retirement do you do to stay busy when you're here?
Maintenance on the house. When you're my age, maintenance on the house will keep you busy. And this year I missed more than half of that 6-month period because of the eye. So next year it'll be a little tougher.
Tougher.
And
So-
then we traveled quite a little bit. We've been to, I don't know, 18 or 20 countries in Europe and to Africa and some of the islands south of us here.
So you were obviously very comfortable traveling internationally. That's just sort of easy to do.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do.
This just slipped off. I'll just clip it here.
It's pretty easy to do, yes. We haven't traveled overseas now for 4 years, I think. It begins to get difficult to get up early in the morning and then stay until it's all over at night.
Did you go usually traveling on your own or with a tour group?
With a tour group.
Okay.
Might be easier to go on your own and set your own schedule. But there are a lot of things to see in both of our countries too. I don't know if you've been to Argentina, but it's a fabulous country for the tourist. You eat well.
Is it mountainous?
The Andes run through the west side of it,
Okay, Andes, that's right.
and it
I forget my geography.
yeah Aconcagua, the highest mountain there is the highest mountain in the Americas.
Oh, it is?
21,000 something
Really?
feet. And then up in the north they have those Iguazu Falls up against the Brazilian border. They're fabulous. They tell me that when the Eisenhowers went there, and Mamie got out where she could see those. There's 175 falls around a big basin like that.
Oh, really?
And when she got out to where she could see them, she said, "Poor Niagara." And the country is so long that if you go up there, you're in the jungle. But if you go to the southern end, it's like being in Fairbanks, Alaska. The warmest days of summer are about 50 degrees. All of the mountains have glaciers on them right down to the ocean.
Oh,
And
my
that's
goodness.
the real southern end.
Uh-huh.
Because the sun wouldn't get that far down.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, gee, I never thought about that.
Yeah, it's getting down pretty close to Antarctica.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've been able to travel quite a bit around Argentina.
Yes. I've been really fortunate there because Mercedes likes to travel, and she loves her country and she likes to show it off. And so people in our circle of friends all tell me, "You've seen a lot more of this country than I have." I think I've been to 18 of the 26 provinces, to about all the places that are touristy. And it's cheap to travel there, cheap to live there, about 3 times as cheap as it is right here.
Really?
I'm sorry, what did you say there? I missed that.
It's about 3 times as cheap to live there
Oh,
as it is here.
is that right?
Wow.
Okay.
Their government is corrupt like almost all Latin America governments. We're seeing some things here that I've defended our country for 17 years, and now some things are happening that I can't defend.
I know. Isn't it sad?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, we're not immune to those people that are greedy and take everything
I know.
that their employees should have.
I know, that's really true, isn't it?
So, when you go down there, you have to speak Spanish, I'm sure.
Yes.
but it's different when they come up here. They don't have everything in English down there like we do up here
No.
in Spanish, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, we sure made it easy for them.
Oh, yes.
So how much Spanish did you know when you met Mercedes?
I could barely carry on a conversation, but it takes years to build a vocabulary.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
I was surprised. I thought I was doing fairly well, and then I walked into that school, and when I started to talk about all the elements that it takes to maintain a school building, oh, I was lost. I think it took me most of 6 months to really study to learn all of it.
Oh, dear.
You're quite comfortable with the language now, obviously.
Yes, still make a lot of mistakes, but nothing that they think is important. They all say the idea is to communicate. If your grammar isn't perfect, so what?
Now, when you moved into this house, was it just a portion of this and you built on later?
Yes, it was that part there. It runs back there about 24 feet. And we made a kitchen big enough for a family and a bathroom big enough for a family, and then 3 tiny, tiny bedrooms. And I think I told you that in '82, when we finally added a decent bedroom, we made a closet out of one of those bedrooms. And we had to be pretty friendly with 8 of us in here in one bathroom.
Yeah.
And when we added this part on, I got this framed up in the summertime, and when winter came, my 3 oldest boys decided they wanted to sleep out here, and they did. And one night, I suppose in January or February, when it was really cold, like 0, and my wife begged those boys to come inside. They didn't want to. They'd gotten accustomed to it. But we were poor folks.
Everyone out here was at that time, yes. You remember the Fox Farm?
Yes.
Yeah, and the store was pretty much as it is now, you know.
Uh-huh.
That's one building hasn't really changed
No.
that much.
We built that block building just back of the store, and I haven't been past there. What is that now? It was a Gamble store when we built it.
Are you talking about to the south?
Just right there within a few feet of the
Where the
log
store is
building.
now?
The
Oh
old-
yeah, I believe so.
Where the store is,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I know you're right, it was a hardware, but I
Yes.
can't remember what one. Could have been Gamble's, yeah.
Did you get acquainted with the Smales that lived there on Milam?
No?
You said something that reminded me of Jane Smale. She lamented the fact that she said, we used to be able to run into our neighbor and we'd say, how are you getting along with your addition? But nobody puts additions on anymore. They
Oh,
rake it off and build a new house.
His house does too. Well, I'm curious, how many houses, can you remember, were on Arrowhead? That just,
Oh, I think where we lived was the only one.
well, it had to have been, you said it was on the south side, and
Uh-huh.
kind of back quite a way.
Yes.
Okay, then I know which house it is.
If you went, I don't remember, maybe 200 yards or 300 yards west on Arrowhead, then the driveway wound around
Yeah.
up on
Yeah.
a higher area.
Yeah.
It was an old house
Right.
with
Mhm.
slab siding, log
Yeah,
slab
probably,
siding.
Yes, there's a family living there now that have fixed it up quite a bit to what it was.
Uh-huh.
But the family before them, he did a lot of fixing too, and built a fireplace, which you can see on the outside as well as the inside, and it was from bricks from the old, either the old Antlers or Chief Theater, I don't remember, one of those big
Mhm.
buildings downtown. Yeah.
Mhm.
And they moved, and this couple moved.
Uh-huh.
She's the daughter of, you would remember Shepherd, the Shepherds.
Builders? The builders?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's the daughter of one of the brothers.
Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. Bruce
Bruce.
and Bud Shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Bruce is her dad
Well,
and lives in a big house up in the Broadmoor.
uh-huh.
They did all of Village 7.
They were one of the first that came in here with new ideas.
In the 50s, yes.
We used to joke that they sold to people outdoors, and they did. They put decks out there
Yeah.
for California ideas, no?
Oh.
And people loved it.
But they weren't actually from California.
No, they had
No, they
California
weren't.
ideas.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes, I met them. Never did really get acquainted with them. And you said that you were born over on I-25.
Well, I lived there. Yeah.
I was thinking this morning that I put a couple of windows in a porch out here that I tore out of a building that we wrecked down there when they were building that I-25.
Yes, okay, they put the interstate, they started talking about the interstate in the late 40s. And my dad went to all the meetings, you know. He had owned that property since 1926. And he didn't want to see that property destroyed.
Uh-huh.
But he went to all the meetings, and he did his best to encourage them. Don't put it right here. This is the middle of town.
Uh-huh.
You're going to need, in time, a highway east.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go west,
Mm-hmm.
but go east.
Sure.
Build a big highway out east.
Sure.
Well,
Didn't do it.
he didn't get his way, and he passed away in 51.
Uh-huh.
So he didn't see the big, you know, destruction.
Every year when we come back after having been gone
Yep.
until this year, we'd see whole new neighborhoods that weren't there.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Well, they just kept going further and further, because we did the same thing. We were married in 55 and went to the East Coast. My husband was in submarines. And every time we'd come back, we were kept going further and further and further, you know, east. And now look, Mark Scheffel, see how far out?
Yes.
And it's just something they do with interstates, bring them right through the centers of towns.
It sure is.
But look at the destruction they caused, you know, really.
They say if they would have taken 25 just another mile west going through Denver, they wouldn't have the smog problem that they have.
Mhm.
That there's enough breeze up there to carry it off.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So you mentioned you built this addition. Was it this addition plus the garage that you built at one time?
No, we I think one year I got the basement put in. Next year we framed this up. Next year we finished it. Then a couple of years later built the rec room on. And started out really as a rec room garage combination. Changed my mind during construction and didn't put the garage door in there. Good thing I didn't. And then a couple of years later, we built the garage on.
So I guess building on your own house had to be fit in between your regular jobs.
And when I could get enough money.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
Yes. So were there ups and downs in the construction business all along?
Yes. Colorado Springs has always gone crazy and overbuilt. And then we go through 2 or 3 years of as we said, chicken one year and feathers the next. And one year, I don't remember what year it was, in the 60s, there was a gas moratorium. They said no more gas meters. And fortunately, we were just getting ready to start one of those big houses out by Elbert, and that saw us through that period. But it just brought builders to it.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That was in the late 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that.
What do you remember about the businesses in the early days when you got moved out here, the businesses in the Black Forest?
Well, let's see. The Black Forest store was there before the trees, no? And the Munsons always did a good job of running that store. And then the garage, maybe the garage was there when we came here. I'm not sure about that. Could have been. And then Gilbert Harris was working for a lumberyard downtown. I'd gotten acquainted with him, and he told me, I'm going to come to Black Forest and put in a paint store. He was then living in that house over on the corner of Howells and Old Ranch Road. And
oh, sure, okay.
and he did. He put in that paint store, and his wife Janice then had the post office in that same store. And they ran the post office for, I don't know, I believe 6 or 8 years. Yeah. And he got busy enough that he started handling a little bit of lumber. And he did things right and bought all of his lumber off of the West Coast where they had better lumber. And so those of us that wanted to build houses that would be straight and stay straight bought our lumber there, and it grew into what it is now. I know they're suffering with this recession, but if he can see it through, it'll be good again.
Yeah.
So those are probably days where he didn't have to compete with the Lowe's and the Home Depots. He just
You're sure right.
didn't have huge things like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
We had Chrissy and Walker Brothers, and went over on West Weller Lumber over on West Colorado. And Bob Wells, he's been there for a long time. I don't remember when he would have started.
Oh, they came out here in '49, but he didn't start his business. You know, he did odd jobs. You know, one of them was the substitute mail carrier.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
carried a lot of the mail.
Doris was the steady one. Huh?
Doris worked at the
Lumberyard
bookkeeping for many, many years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But he has his own shop now. It's beautiful.
Uh-huh.
He makes the cases for the academies all over.
Uh-huh.
The swords, you know, that they get at the end of the year.
Uh-huh.
A case to keep those swords in. Yeah.
Who was it? Robert Guy.
Worked at the lumberyard
Uh-huh.
for many, many years, but
Yeah.
you know what? They let him go?
Let him go.
Long ago.
He stopped by for coffee the other day, and
Really?
he said that Doreen, uh, Bob and Doris's daughter,
Mhm.
is working in the shop with Bob.
Oh, is she?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, now she lives in some old cabin house. That's a historical place.
Oh, really?
Did Bob tell you about that?
Don't think
It's
so.
right on the corner of Shoup and Herring
Oh, okay.
on the,
Okay.
yeah. I can't remember whose, but that's an old cabin. You know, there's so many old cabins
Oh,
around
I'm
here.
tied up.
Okay.
I was going to pull that curtain a bit.
Well, that's okay. It'll give us some light and give a better
Okay.
picture for us, so that's quite all right. Okay. Did you have a garden when you lived out here?
Yes. With my first wife, we had a garden. And, of course, when you add it all up, it doesn't pay off very well because the frost always gets your tomatoes. But we had a good garden for things like turnips and carrots and potatoes. It's a good potato area.
Okay.
And sweet corn.
You did canning vegetables? And
Yes.
Did you freeze them then too, or largely canning?
Largely canning.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Did you raise any animals in this place? I think you said you had animals over in Arrowhead.
We had a milk cow and some chickens here for several years. And I was plenty impressed when we first moved here that we had the chickens in a pen out there by a shed, and we fed them outside in the chicken feeders. And one day I realized that the blue jays would fly up in the pine tree there, squeal exactly like a hawk. Those chickens would run in the chicken house, and blue jays fly down and eat.
Oh, yeah.
They're really smart, almost as smart as those squirrels.
Yeah, yeah.
When I was, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We had horses and mules. I think I told you I love to hunt, and so I kept mules for
Okay.
hunting.
So
Okay.
where did you go hunting?
In the West Elk Wilderness area, northwest of Gunnison.
Okay. And you hunted, what, deer and elk?
Yes.
Yeah.
Deer, elk, bear, and we packed back in a long way, and got back in where we never see other hunters.
Oh,
My
wow,
son
that-
Shannon still goes there, and so being back in a good country and putting out some effort, we had good success
You
and a lot of enjoyment.
got some bearskin rugs in some of the other rooms?
The one downstairs.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, wow. Oh, let's see, what else can we ask you? When I was talking to Bob Wells, he was telling me something that was so interesting, and maybe you can add to it or reminisce on it. He said that when he moved out here, which was the late 40s, they hadn't done all the work on the roads like cutting and filling, so there was a lot of this.
Yes.
Tell us, what was that like? It didn't sound
It was like just like that.
Didn't sound like there was many level stretches of
Yes.
road anywhere.
Yeah. And drainage wasn't designed. I remember in 1965 we had 5 inches of rain. If you weren't here, you probably read about that.
Yes, we were out here on leave.
And it just
Terrible.
washed out roads everywhere because they hadn't planned for so much rain, and the drainage wasn't designed for
Well, that's the year the bridge went out over on Howells.
it. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So there used to be a bridge across
Mhm.
Kettle Creek on Howells.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Mhm.
That was
Yeah.
a pretty steep hill going down, wasn't
Oh
it?
yeah. It's even steeper now.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we used to take our horses down it all the time, but you can begin to take a horse down it now. In fact, I don't think you can even walk down it. But yeah, that bridge went out in '65. It was a terrible storm. 35 was the big one.
Yeah.
From Monument on down. Took
Oh,
the
yeah.
bridges out in Colorado Springs. And 65 took the bridges out here.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness.
Big storms.
And we had another big one that Kettle Creek was just unreal.
Mm-hmm.
But that was in the 70s. It was after we moved out here. So
Where was the city? Where was the north edge of the city when you arrived in town?
Well, generally speaking, Fillmore. There was a little restaurant out north on Nevada that, of course, was the main highway then. There was a little restaurant out there where they're doing all that dirt work now. That restaurant lasted for several years, and then Nevada came on out, and I'm not going to be able to remember the name of where it went up a hill and made the curve. That old road is still there.
you're talking about through the Breed Underpass.
Breed Underpass.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That overpass was where the Santa Fe Railroad
Yes.
went across.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was way out of town.
Oh, heavens!
Yeah.
way out. Yeah, Fillmore was the city limits.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Okay.
End of town anyway.
Well, yes and no. The actual city limits was just before the bridge.
Uh-huh.
You know, you come Jackson Street and so on and so forth.
Uh-huh.
And the Long Island Railroad went under that bridge.
Yes.
Okay, that was city limits way back.
Uh-huh.
And they might have, I don't know, a little bit further later on. But you can tell because all of your bars, see,
Oh
were
yeah.
outside of city limits. There was
Oh,
Uh-huh.
really?
no bars in Colorado Springs
Oh, that's
for a
true.
number of years.
And the Hogan was a going concern.
Oh, yeah. One of the biggest. And then the Star
Yeah.
Club. And
Uh-huh.
across the street was
Bob's Cafe.
the House of Oscar.
Also, I cooked there. I cooked in the House of Oscar for a while.
Did you? We knew the man that owned that, yeah.
Bill and Oscar
Yes, yes, Bill. They finally took over.
Hartford.
Yes, in Manitou. Took over that place.
I'm still mad at them because they shut that one down.
Well,
I haven't
in
had good
Manitou.
prime rib since then. The House of Prime Rib.
I know. But he was all crippled up and he just couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
Yep. But you remember what it used to be before they got hold of it?
No.
Now let me. Hiawatha.
Hiawatha Gardens.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Wonderful place. They would have big bands there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
This Western singer, I can't remember his name, but my husband came home on leave, and he and his sister and her girlfriend, they went to go and dance at Hiawatha, and of course he's all in uniform, and he walked in, and the band just stopped. The leader, he stopped the band. He said, then they started this song, "Whoa, Sailor," something like that.
Oh, yeah.
He was kind of embarrassed about it. Yeah.
Hiawatha Gardens.
Yep.
I think there were about 30,000 people in Colorado Springs when we moved
Very
here.
small. Very small. Yeah.
What do you remember about the Air Force Academy coming here?
Not very much. I also did a little cooking over on the Air Force Academy. at a place called the Pine Valley Club. It was an exclusive place. Had white carpet in that restaurant. It was there when they bought the building, so they left it. And it was a pretty nice place, but it didn't last long. I think I only cooked there a couple of months, and this won't have anything to do with your story about Black Forest. Maybe I'll not
That's
tell
okay.
it.
I know, we get carried away.
The chef was a little short Italian, Angelo Torteglini, and he really knew how to do things. He could make Jello without gelatin, and I never got him to tell me how. And we had a new manager come in. New manager was a young fella, big stocky fella, and he came in the kitchen one night, and I never did learn what it was about, but he said something to Angelo that Angelo didn't want to hear. Angelo had a big cleaver in his hand. He was standing by the meat block. He slapped that cleaver down flat on there. He said, "Get the hell out of my kitchen." Next morning early, the manager called me and said, "Angelo's not going to be there any longer. I'd like for you to take his place." And so I agreed to take it, but within a week or so, I talked myself into the truth that the same thing could happen to me quickly because he was a hot-headed young guy.
Yeah.
So I left.
Oh my. God. Wow.
Don't mess with those old Italian cooks.
Well, let's see. What else can we ask you?
Did you ever go to any of the dances up in Black Forest? At
No.
the community club?
Unfortunately, I never learned to dance.
Oh dear.
My wife loves it, but I never learned to dance.
Yeah. Yeah. They've had some good times up there. And let's see.
I'm sorry that an old neighbor down here isn't alive anymore. Chief Tyree, did you get acquainted with him?
You know, I've heard of that name.
He was the father of Pete Tyree that was head of the building department for years and years.
Okay.
And he lived right down the road here, about half mile back in a tiny, tiny little log cabin,
Yeah.
and lived like an Indian, made pemmican and all those things.
Yeah.
He was such an interesting fellow.
Yeah. Did you happen to know the couple, Darnold?
Darnold,
Yeah.
were they
He was in
with
the
the
Air
school?
Force. What?
Was he with the school?
No.
No.
With the Air Force, and they built a house. Just, oh gosh, it's before you get to this Brook Park, and after Milam, and it sets way back. And she's in her 90s now, but they've been here since '54. So it's about the same time that you came out.
Uh-huh. Darnold, I remember the name.
Lee Darnold.
Lee Darnold.
Is her name. Yeah. I just wondered if maybe you had met her at some time or something.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Or Mark Wild, that had the glider port.
Oh, did you know that?
Yes, I've said 1,000 times that in the days when things were much cheaper than they are now, I did over $2 million worth of work for Mark and never signed a contract. He was just that kind of a guy.
But you always got paid, right?
On time.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Wow.
Great. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Yeah, that glider port was a wonderful place, you know.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a shame that not there anymore. But, yeah.
What do you think, if you look back on your time in the Black Forest, what are the most significant changes you think have taken place?
That we don't know each other anymore. It's been great to be able to get acquainted with you two this afternoon. But we don't visit among neighbors anymore, do we? Too busy.
Too busy.
Yes and no, but you know, in our neighborhood, I have a party every Christmas,
All right.
and everybody comes. Most
Uh-huh.
everybody in the neighborhood.
That's great.
And they just have a wonderful time.
Uh-huh.
You know, talking with each other and
Uh-huh.
visiting and so forth. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
every Christmas.
I,
Sure. Go.
I was telling Mercedes this morning that I miss those days when we met somebody on the road, you waved at them.
Yeah,
We don't do that anymore.
I know. Yeah.
Excuse me.
I'm sure you see it even with your own family, where your children are busy with school activities and things. It's hard to get them together.
Ooh, yes. And there are a lot more activities now than when my kids were in school.
Yes. Well, I know, we get so busy, we kind of lose sight of
Yeah.
people sometimes, don't we?
Yeah.
I must tell a story about Mrs. Wilford. We were doing some remodeling on her house one time, and she one day sat down and told us some stories, and as we had left the day before, there was a pickup pulled up out front, and a young fella got out of it and was walking up to her house. Next day when we went to work, she said, "You saw that fella get out of his pickup there yesterday?" Turned out he was an old student of the Black Forest School. He now lives in Oregon, and he was going through here, remembered where I lived, and just wanted to stop and say hello. He said, you probably don't remember me. And she said, "Oh yeah, you remember the day I made you sit on the steps?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I do, more than once." And so she said we went on visiting, and I never did tell him that I didn't remember it. But I knew that if he was a boy and went through my school, he probably sat on that.
Oh, man. She was quite an institution.
She had life figured out.
Wow.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a wonderful person to have in that
Yeah.
school.
Did you, when you first moved out here, did you see very many wild animals?
No, we see more now
Really?
than we did then. I think it's because people keep their dogs up now. And we hardly ever even saw a cottontail. Now we see them pretty regular. Unfortunately, my neighbor got 3 cats during the last year, and I see them up here watching the wood pile and watching the bird feeders. So I know they're taking the cottontails out, but we see deer regular here now. And 40 years ago, we hardly ever saw one.
Really?
You may have noticed when you drove up, I feed the woodpeckers and the magpies kidney suet from beef. I hang it out there, and it'll hang all year and not rot. And a couple of months ago, we came home one day, and there had been a bear got up the tree, pulled that thing down, and tore that basket all to pieces, and had eaten at least 15 pounds of suet.
He probably thought he had a banquet.
Oh, wonderful.
This summer, we've had, there were 2 bears over in a development next to us. Someone got a picture of them, actually.
Uh-huh.
And they'd been rumbling around, and a number of people saw them in our neighborhood. I live just west of Black Forest Park, off Shoup.
Uh-huh.
And we had a bear in the neighborhood. We have a pretty good email network in our neighborhood, and keep track with neighbors. And then
Yeah.
someone would email to the whole neighborhood and say, "Hey, I saw him tonight, or I saw him this morning. I'm going to put the garbage can out."
All right.
And so this has been an active summer
Uh-huh.
for those bears. And
Well, tell him about the one right in your deck.
well, we had one come up on our deck and take the hummingbird feeder down.
Uh-oh.
And we heard some rumbling and got up at about 11 o'clock at night to check and see what it was, and couldn't figure it out. And kind of looked around the house, everything seemed normal. Then I heard some rustling out on the deck, and went out to there's a picture window, and it was lighting up the picture window, and there he was right on the other side. Fortunately, double glass, so it wasn't dangerous, but I was shaking so much I couldn't even take a picture.
I would too.
I tried taking a picture, and I was shaking so much I turned the lever wrong. Never got it. So,
Goodness.
Enough of these close encounters, huh?
yes,
Yeah,
boy,
they make you nervous.
That one.
yes. Well, let's see. What else can we think of to ask? I'm going to move up. I'm timing it between the trees and the seam, and that's fine to have that light, so don't worry about that.
Okay.
Well, you have told us so much, and this has been so fun.
Well, I wish my memory.
Your memory
It's better.
is fine.
Your
are
memory's doing
remembering
very well.
Names and places and dates. You're just doing fine.
So now in a week you leave for Argentina,
Mm-hmm.
and you're there until early May.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, good.
And it's a different life. Of course,
Well,
a
that's
different
how it needs to
culture.
have that change, and stay in nice weather, and that'd be great.
And fortunately, both of us enjoy life in both countries.
That's right.
We have quite a few friends where one of them has married somebody from another country, and they live here permanently. And almost without fail, that one that has come from another place is bitter. And
Oh.
Oh, really?
they say, "Oh, it's like that in this country."
Oh, really?
But
Well,
you miss things from your
Yeah,
country.
Yeah.
It's pretty significant if they don't ever get to go back.
Yes,
for
there
a
it
visit or
is.
something.
Yeah.
That's pretty significant.
Yeah,
I
sure
wouldn't
is.
know what that would feel like, I guess.
Yeah.
I wouldn't either, but I just got to think when you said that,
Go off and leave your family and all your
well,
customs.
and you're the one that is leaving all your family to go
Yeah.
down there,
Yeah.
but you enjoy it, it's
Uh-huh.
nice and so forth.
And plan on
and
being
you
back
know.
in 6 months.
And then she comes back up here, so
Uh-huh.
that's the way life should be.
Good.
We
Yeah,
really have enjoyed it.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Well,
It's sad that you lose your mate that you think you're going to have for
Mhm.
life. But God
Yes.
says, we want you,
We-
and he takes them.
Yep,
But it's wonderful that you find another,
that's
to-
true.
to spend the rest of your life with and enjoy life. And
Yeah.
I think it's very sad when people just kind of get in a cocoon.
pull in and-
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I have a friend that's going through that now. He's
Yeah.
really struggling with it.
It is. I have a neighbor, I hope that he gets over it. His wife just died a month ago, a little over a month ago, with cancer,
Uh-huh.
and she was only 52.
oh
you
my
know.
goodness. Wow.
Their children are married and gone, and they have grandchildren,
Yeah.
but, he's awfully young to be left like that.
Yeah.
So maybe someday he'll find someone.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank
Right.
you very much for letting us
Yeah.
come over and talk
Well,
to
it's
you.
been my pleasure.
You don't know much
I really-
about us, but we know a lot about you, and that is fascinating to us.
Well, it's been enjoyable to get to know you a little bit.
Well, this is, I told Terry when we first started this, and I said, the history of Black Forest I kind of know because, I've been
Uh-huh.
around for ever and ever.
Uh-huh.
And I just like talking with you people like
Uh-huh.
this and hearing your stories and, and it gives me an enlightenment,
Uh-huh.
you know. And then he came up with the idea, well, let's get movies of them, you know.
Uh-huh.
You should see what they're coming up with. It's a DVD, you know, the little,
Uh-huh.
and he puts your picture on the front of it. I mean, he's very professional. He and Gary Watson have done this together. And then you pop this in, and you see and hear all of this conversation you've been having.
Uh-huh.
And trust me, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren will enjoy it
Uh-huh.
years to come.
Sure.
Well, I didn't know this, that
Sure.
Grandpa did this and did that.
I'll bet that's right.
Yeah, and yet it's something for the whole community, you know,
Uh-huh.
that these were the people. Black Forest has been here for 100 years, you know, the Indians and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
In fact, one of my husband's great-grandfathers worked in one of the logging mills up here, we
Well,
don't know which,
uh-huh.
way back.
Uh-huh.
And, but, you know, just, it's changed, it's grown, and people need to know what it was like. We only have a
Mhm.
few things left, you know, the old
Mhm.
store, La Ferret,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, you know.
Uh-huh.
They tore down Glover's Corner, it's not there
Yeah.
anymore, and, you know, the churches, the old church, and they're
Uh-huh.
building new churches all the time, and so it's kind of, it's history. What did it used to be like? And who built it?
Uh-huh.
And you're one of the builders.
Yeah. You have a lot of fingerprints on this community,
Yes.
as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
much.
I don't really know how many houses we built out here.
Do you remember
Is there-
any of the burned, you know, and fires and so forth? There's been
No.
a few fires.
There was one over here to the northwest that that happened about the time we came out here,
Really?
but I don't remember any of the others.
Well, Paul King's house burned. I know that one. And that was late 50s, early 60s, sometime in there.
Uh-huh.
You know, that's next to the lumber yard there.
Yes.
Set back a ways, yeah. That was very bad, because that was a nice old log.
Uh-huh.
Really.
Uh-huh.
But, yeah. Fires back then,
Oh,
dangerous,
that was-
really dangerous. And
Yeah.
everybody, you know, coal and wood, that's all they had
Mhm.
to eat with.
Mm-hmm.
You did have electricity though, didn't you, when you moved here?
Yes, we did. Uh-huh.
It took a while to get that out here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was just an article in the Black Forest News about a month ago about the milkman that came around
Mm-hmm.
a couple of times a week. He was a good friend to everybody.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
heavens, yes. Yeah. Well, where did you pick up your mail? That's interesting too. Way back. Did you you didn't have one right up in front, did you?
Yes.
Did you?
When we moved here, we put a mailbox there.
Okay.
But the address was just Route 3, Colorado Springs.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, I know that some of them over on, lived on Chute, they had to go clear to Milam, and there was
Uh-huh.
just a bunch of mailboxes on Milam to pick up
Uh-huh.
their mail. And if it
Well-
really snowed, they may wait for a week to get their
Uh-huh.
mail or something, you know.
Was Bob Wells ever your mailman?
No.
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 Do you know that his route, when he was the mailman, went all the way from Monument to about Bulmer?
Well,
He had put on 300 miles a day or something.
Oof.
Just crazy. Maybe that number is exaggerated, but he said it went all the way to Monument.
hmm.
Well,
And-
we will let you get back
Yeah.
to your packing and preparing. And again, like I said, when we're finished, we will give you a DVD with this whole recording on it, which is sound and video, and a transcription of what we've said on paper. So it'll be a record for you, and the opportunity, if you ever wanted to get more copies, the copy we give to you will be a gift, but if you ever want to have more copies, we can make them for a small price for family members or something like that.
Great.
So you can take a look at it when you get it, but mainly we just like to preserve this as something for you and for us to learn about your observations and experiences in the forest. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.